You're listening to the Run for Your Lives podcast.
Hey everyone, welcome to the show. I'm Daphne.
And I'm Pake.
And this is the Run for Your Lives podcast.
This episode, we're talking about the computer-animated haunted house film Monster House, directed by Gil Kenan and released July 21st, 2006. We're going back a little ways.
We are, and we're bringing another animated film to the table. This is a record for us, Pake, because I think this season, this is our third one. I don't think we've ever done 3 in a season.
Yeah, this is another one of our episodes. I felt like we hadn't done it in a while, but then like you just pointed out, it's like the third one this season. But it's fun to do sometimes. But yeah, it's another one of our episodes that's a lot like Wu-Tang. It's for the children. So
okay, yeah. So we're gonna try not to use inappropriate language. So if there are any of our listeners out there in the universe who want to listen to it and their children are around and want to be reassured that it is appropriate for kids, we're going to do our best to make that happen. And if we can't during the recording, I'll do my magical editing and remove it out.
Right.
That's what you got to do. So, we are going to get underway first with our production notes. So, it was Sony's first computer animated film produced by Sony Pictures Imageworks. It's also the first animated film to be made using Arnold, which is Sony's animation rendering software. It's the first Columbia Pictures animated theatrical film to be rated PG by the Motion Picture Association of America. In order to keep the movie as PG rating, the victims that were eaten, Bones, the cops, and the dog, had to come back to life during the end credits. This is Robert Zemeckis and Steven Spielberg's first production together in 16 years, since they did Back to the Future 3. It was both a critical and a commercial success, and nominated for an Academy Award and a Golden Globe. Unfortunately, it lost to Happy Feet for the Oscar. For the Golden Globe, it lost to Cars. It had a budget of $75 million and grossed $141.9 million. It's 91 minutes long. And Pake, we're ready for a synopsis.
All right, be careful. This one might spoil everything. 3 kids discover that the neighbor's house is really a living, breathing, scary monster.
Oh, yes.
That's about it.
Yep. I mean, really, that is the bottom line. I love the way that the animation brought the house to life to become the monster. Like, it looks like this, unassuming house with a well-manicured lawn. Everything looks perfect. And then you get to learn the true story.
Yeah. Just the window eyes and all of the floorboard teeth and the door and everything. It's cool how it transforms into this face. And yeah, it's a really cool visual. They did a great job with it.
Yeah, and it has not only the house is possessed, but like the lawn as well. Because there was one part that I'm sure we'll talk about that made it seem like the lawn didn't want to let go of something. So
yeah. So I was just pulling things down under. Yeah, it's definitely creepy moments. It's really cool
for sure.
Yeah, this one I had not seen this movie since it first came out in 2006. I remember seeing it then. I remember that I really liked it, but I haven't watched it again since then. And so this has been on my radar, and I've wanted to cover it for a while. So I was like, now's the time. Let's do it. Let's break it out. And I'm glad I did, because I remember that I really liked it, and I still really like it. It holds up for sure. And I remember why I really liked it. I was like, oh yeah, it's a really fun kind of kid-friendly horror story.
Yeah, they actually had to work to make it more kid-friendly because there were some pieces in it, in the original script or in development, that would not have made it as kid-friendly, and it was actually more disturbing. So I think they definitely moved it in a direction that would be more kid-friendly. Although rated PG is still not for the little ones.
Right. Yeah. Parental guidance is what that stands for.
Yes.
People know that. That means like there's still some stuff in here that, yeah, like there are definitely kids that are going to be bothered or disturbed or scared by some of these things for sure. Like you've got to know your kids.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it's not for everyone, but it's definitely one that I'm hoping my nieces will enjoy once they get a little bit older. I think right now, if they watch it, they'd be a little scared, but I think once they get a bit older, they might enjoy it. It's fun. I had never seen it, as with most animated movies that you bring to the table.
Right.
It's something I haven't seen before. So this was my first viewing of it.
I really like a lot of these animated movies. The same reasons I like Paranorman so much is it's a horror movie. It's a scary movie, but it has a lot more lightheartedness. Like, you know, I mean, I like a lot of good horror movies that have comedy in them. We've covered ones that are definitely not kid friendly. You know, movies like Cooties and things. But but so just to have that like really lighthearted, but then there's an extra layer to these kind of movies where it's meant for kids, but they have a lot of jokes and a lot of things that are meant for the adults to pick up on that the kids don't. And those are the things that I really, really like about these movies is noticing those, because it's an extra layer of like creativity that it takes to get there.
I think they do it for the parents who have to take their kids to the movies. They want them to have something that they can enjoy and chuckle at and not just be taking them to another animated film that's, you know, more generic.
Right.
I like when they put the extra thought in because it can easily get pretty boring, I would think, to take kids to animated films that subscribe to a similar formula.
Yeah. And it's jokes, whether it's, you know, something as kind of subtle and just kind of a jab at society with the whole, you know, the danger zone area they're hiding at is this construction site for these luxury towers, and how on the sign it's like, we drained the lake. Like, that's hilarious to me. No kid's gonna read that and care, or what, but that's really funny to me. Or even like jokes that are a little more adult oriented that the kids aren't gonna pick up on a lot, like Chowder being like, oh, my dad's at the pharmacy and my mom's at the movies with her personal trainer. Like, I know. Like, I was like, I'm not even going to touch that one. That's hilarious.
No, that's kind of funny. I thought that was a riot. Chowder was the source of a lot of levity in this movie for me. I really enjoyed that character a lot. He was very immature, but he also... There were times that I felt he was more mature than DJ when it came to certain things, which I'm sure we'll talk about as we go through this movie, like we always do, talking about characters.
Yeah. So let's break into it. Let's get there. And I guess your main character would be DJ. We'll talk about him. Voiced by Mitchell Musso, who I once had a quite fun conversation with in a frozen yogurt shop randomly years ago. Just
oh my gosh.
Just like a random thing. He has family that lives here in my town, in my area. And so he comes to visit from time to time. And so, yeah, it was just a random, I was out at the frozen yogurt shop in town, just like getting there. And he was in line in front of me with his girlfriend. I didn't even recognize him. And we just started talking because it was like a random conversation about a joke of like how many different flavors of vanilla can one place have. Like, you call them different things, but they're all the same. And it was just started like that. And we were just like riffing and just like joking. And it wasn't until like after the whole conversation, I was like, oh, that was Mitchell Musso. Like, that's funny. Yeah.
I'm really surprised that you didn't pick up on it before then, because you seem to be able to spot people, and be able to strike up a conversation with him. I'm just thinking about when we were at the pay-per-view in May and just hanging out before we even went in, and you were already connecting with people. Like you spotted the guy from Kim's Convenience.
Yeah. Andrew Fung was a lot of fun. Yeah. So yeah, just kind of random on that. It's funny, I was like, oh yeah, Mitchell Musso's in this. Like, I met him. It was a fun conversation. But yeah, but just outside of that, the voice cast, because it's been so long since I saw this, I completely forgot. Like, I didn't realize how star-studded this movie was going back into it and looking at it on the voice cast. I was like, man, I mean, Steve Buscemi.
Oh my God, he was fantastic. He was fantastic. Good. Nebercracker. What's up with Nebercracker as a name? Oh my goodness.
But he was amazing in that role, and just has his voice, like you could like really, the animation of like the character's face, whether it was like the grumpy crotchety old man that he played at first versus like the really emotional stuff that he got near the end, the mix of the animation with just the way that Buscemi delivered those lines, you're like, man, I'm really drawn into what's going on here. They did a really good job with that. And then even smaller ones that it's just like funny to look at. Like, I mean, we don't get a lot of them, but DJ's parents are Catherine O'Hara and Fred Willard.
O'Hara. Like, they were great. And they were having the conversation that you could imagine, because the movie this movie took place in like 1983. They were having conversations in the car. DJ's parents were having these conversations, and I was just dying, because those are the types of things that you would hear people saying. Tell him you love him, blow him a kiss, like just crazy stuff to me now, thinking about it. But it was a lot of fun. I got a lot of laughs out of the police officers, which were Kevin James and Nick Cannon. Oh my God. They were great.
Yes, just a lot of fun. Like, I mean, Kevin James, you hear his voice immediately and you just like, oh yeah, that's 100% him. And he's just put everything he is into that character, which is great. And then Nick Cannon was hilarious. It's just this like,
oh my goodness,
way too overeager to do everything.
He wanted to save the day, and no. That was a bit more than he could handle, I think. But I also think that they did well, too, with John Heder played Skull, which very small part in this movie, but so funny when he was on, when his character was on the screen. It was just great.
Yeah, Maggie Gyllenhaal was like spot on. And they did like a lot of the animation. Like, they made some of the characters look a lot like the people. I mean, like, these young Mitchell Musso, Maggie Gyllenhaal, John Heder, who was a much, more rotund version of him in the character of Skull. But I mean, he definitely had a Heder face. Kevin James' character was pretty close. But yeah, Jason Lee as Bones was a great addition there. Yeah. He's always a lot of fun. Kathleen Turner. Like,
yeah, they put a lot of effort into the smaller characters, like making sure that they still had high level performers do the voices. For me, Jenny, I loved when she finally came onto the scene and was selling her candy bars. Spencer Locke, for me, is Kmart from Resident Evil Afterlife and Extinction. I heard her voice and I'm like, oh, it's familiar. And I had to go look it up, and it's like, oh my gosh, it's Kmart. So it was kind of cool.
Yeah. But yeah, so tangent. Yeah, on cast.
Yeah.
But I usually on movies like this, because I think we did it on Anaconda like recently, a couple weeks ago, where I was like, let's just break down this cast real quick, because holy crap, I wasn't ready for that,
Yeah. Because you're not. Because a lot of times I feel like with an animated film, they put people in specific roles, and then I don't know, there's just not as much thought. And so this was really cool to see the list of people that were doing the voices. Because like I said, I've never seen this before. It's not a surprise, because I don't watch a lot of animated movies. But I have been because of this podcast. So this was just another addition. But we meet poor DJ, who is so convinced that something's going on next door, Because at the very start of this movie, we get an adorable little girl singing, riding her tricycle, and she happens to get off the sidewalk and into Nebuchadnezzar's yard.
Mm-hmm.
And he takes her tricycle away, tells her to get off his land, and DJ's watching the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
You get the impression that he's been watching him for a while. Like, he knows or can tell that something's really happening next door, and he's been waiting for there to be proof, I think. It just hasn't materialized as much as it does in the next day.
Right. Yeah, he's been keeping track of all the things that the old man's like been stealing and taking from kids, and yeah, he's just kind of taking notice. It's like he's very mean and very ruthless, and it's like,
yes,
it is kind of even like Bones. He says, you know, when he was 10 years old, like, so it's like been a like, you know, neighborhood legend all the way, you know, back for a while, you know, probably, you know, a lot within those 45 years that Nevercracker says he's lived there. There's just like, you know, toys and things. You see his stash in the house. If anything goes in his yard, it doesn't exist anymore. That's what DJ says. Like,
no, it disappears. It goes to a giant toy box in the cellar of the house.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that was quite a toy box that we saw. The
mm-hmm.
number of toys that were in there, all the different, I mean, wow. It was quite a collection Nevercracker had going on there.
Yeah. But yeah, so DJ's kind of in, aside from, you know, the crazy monster house across the street and things going on, just even him personally, he's, you know, they make a lot of jokes about it, but he is 13 in the movie. So he's right there at that age of puberty. They talk about it throughout the movie. You know, I love his that, voice. You know, he's yelling to his parents, like, no, you don't understand something. And he goes, I'm serious. And he just stops himself. And they're like, what happened to his mom's giving him some crap about it. And he's just like, I'm serious. Like, he's like, that didn't happen. I'm a man. I'm like,
yeah, it was rough. He's going through that time. I mean, we're looking at kids going through puberty, and they're going through all of these things that are confusing to them because things are just changing. Their bodies are changing. Their voices are changing. I mean, when we see him and Chowder and how they react to Jenny, that's another indication of, ooh,
I was like, these kids are like infatuated within half a second of seeing her. And I was like, takes me back, man. I get it.
They didn't know. I mean, she was a pretty serious candy salesman, but we'll get to that a bit later. Yeah, DJ's parents, they leave town and leave him with a babysitter, and you can tell right away that trouble's going to be afoot when his friend Chowder shows up.
Yeah, and it's that kind of talking about like that line of his age and growing up to where, and we've all been there, you know, in friend groups and things, like there are kids just kind of mature at different rates and at different places. And so kids are the same age are very different. And we see DJ, you know, wanting to be a little bit more mature and grow up, and Chowder's still his little kid friend who is coming over, you know, oh, what are we doing for trick-or-treating? We're going to dress up as this. What are we going to do? And they have that conversation. It's like, I don't think we're doing trick-or-treating anymore. I think we're a little too old for that. And Chowder's not ready for that. He's like,
no, he wants candy time.
What are you talking about? You know, and it, to where he kind of gives him that, you know, kind of prods at him a little bit about that. Like when the basketball, which I was like, Chowder plays ball like me. He's got the same, he copies my style. But of course, getting hit in the face and then the ball bouncing over into Nebuchadnezzar's yard. And I love how when they're like, well, it's lost forever, but then, you know, kids can't go over there. And Chowder's like, well, you're a grown up now, so go get it. Like...
Yes. Yeah. Chowder, he had a lot of fun dialogue in this movie. He specifically about that ball. He's like, I paid $28 for that ball. I had to mow 10 lawns and ask my mom for $1 26 times. I'm thinking, you got paid $2 to do 10 lawns?
Right?
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah, he never worked for something that hard in his life.
No. And of course, DJ goes to try to get it back, which causes... Yeah.
Yeah, never. At first, he's like, I'm going to be getting. He gets to the ball, and then almost like a specter in the dark, a shadow, Nebercracker appears and, runs out to him and grabs him. He's like picking him up and just shaking him. And this whole, do you want to be dead? Which is funny because he yells to the little girl at the beginning, too, is like, you want to die? And she's like, oh my God. So, like, people in this neighborhood are just like, this guy is really violent with children. Like, he's threatening to murder them if they're on his property.
He's
not
so
knowing,
intense.
Yeah, that really he's trying to protect them, and his do you want to die is my wife house is gonna kill you. Like
not the White House, the wife house.
Right. But I like that. Do you want to be dead? And DJ goes, no, I love life.
This place is not a playground for children. Why can't you just stay away from her? He doesn't, and then he wants to take it back. That was the first indication that the house was possessed by something.
Yeah. And then, in the middle of his scolding of DJ there, he just dies, seemingly. It's just like has a heart attack and dies on top of the kid. Like, is what it's pretty much seemingly there. And then we get where the paramedics are wheeling him away. DJ notices the key that he drops and picks that up. And is pretty shaken by the whole thing, which, makes sense. You would be. And then again, Chowder, with your very irreverent comic relief, where DJ's just distraught, like, I'm a murderer. No, you're not. I'm not. Well, when it's an accident, they call it manslaughter.
Oh my gosh. Again, like, it's very tongue-in-cheek. It's really tongue-in-cheek. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I wondered if you noticed the I'm T-Rexcellent poster that was in DJ's room. As soon as I saw it, I was like, I figured Daphne's going to pick up on that and enjoy that.
Yes. Yes, I did. I loved it.
Because, he goes back home. He's kind of distraught. And then babysitter shows up and he doesn't want to deal with her because she's awful. So he just goes to bed early, retreats to his room, and is just, I'm done with this day. But then the call is coming from inside the house.
The house.
Across the street, but still.
Yes. I love he did *69 to call the house back, which was a common thing that you would do if the phone rang and you didn't get to it in time. You would do *69 so you could call the person
kids watch
back.
this today. It's like, you learned something there. I wonder how many kids know anything about *69 anymore.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you don't really need it because you get when a number calls you, you just have the number.
Yeah.
There. Unless here's another trick. If you don't want people to have your phone number when you call them, then that's *67. But
oh, okay. So this has become an educational podcast.
Yeah. But so I was like, I wonder, kids today wouldn't even get that. But even 2006 when this came out, I guess it was still, there were a lot more landlines still in 06 versus now.
I'm still surprised that you know what it is.
Oh, yeah. I'm a kid of the 90s.
So, yes. DJ is getting this phone call, and he's still trying to get Z, to his babysitter, to understand that there's something going on at that house. No one wants to believe him.
Mm-hmm. No, but there's creepy stuff going on, so he's going to call his best friend Chowder, because that's the person you want in dire times, for sure.
Yes.
Wants him to meet him at the danger zone, which I wonder, is there a specific highway that you're supposed to take to get there?
I don't know. I heard once that there was.
Mm-hmm. I figured there should be. I was just curious.
Yeah.
And then that's that line, the dad's at the pharmacy. My mom's at the movies with her personal trainer. Cracks me up. I love that line so much.
Oh my goodness. Well, it was the height of the time when people, honestly, most people were watching videos and doing exercise at home, like Jane Fonda and some of the others. I don't remember any of the others right now off the top of my head, but there were a lot of those videotapes. I think Denise Austin. There were a bunch of videotapes. People did a lot of that in the 80s for exercise. It's cool that she has a personal trainer, but I'm not sure that that's what the person really is. I think she just may be calling him that. Or what what the trainer is working on with her may not be suitable for us to discuss on this podcast if we wish to keep it rated G or PG. So we'll leave it to your imagination.
So the boys meet up at the danger zone, this construction site, and Chowder is just too much. He can't stop just playing too much all the time in any definition of that, with things or about things. He's just, it's crazy, because I'm sure if I was younger about that age watching this movie, I'd be like, man, this kid's funny. But now I'm like, oh my God, give him a Xanax and make him sit down. He's
super active and he wants to play with everything, even if it's not a toy. Like construction equipment. He definitely wants to play with the construction equipment. And who would leave their keys there? Like that. Oh.
As far as I understand, that's pretty common in a lot of construction equipment, is just to leave it there.
Did you leave it?
Because nobody really messes with it on sites. So it's like,
well, they didn't meet Chowder.
That way, whoever's working at any time can just show up and it's there for them.
And start. Oh, well. I'm not sure that's a smart thing, but okay. Although back in the 80s, you didn't lock much of anything, really.
Right.
I mean, people left their doors unlocked. It's a much different time now.
Yeah, so they discuss kind of what's going on around Chowder playing around with everything. And Chowder's not really sure how to feel about it. He sees on his own that it's he's telling the truth. After he's gonna ding dong ditch that place, and say, not a good idea.
Yeah, no,
barely escapes the rug tongue.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they decide to stay up all night and watch this place for any activity. And these kids are real dedicated to their research. That is not Mountain Dew.
No, they didn't even dare to go to the restroom. It's just crazy. But remember, Chowder bribed DJ and said that he would do things only if DJ would go trick-or-treating with him when this was all over. Right. So you can tell that Chowder, he does understand.
He did it all for the candy. What? The candy.
Yeah, that was about 16 years before that song came out. Oh, goodness.
So yeah, they meet up with Jenny, and I'm skipping over a lot of things because a lot of Chowder and things I'll talk about, but
yes,
you know, meeting Jenny, obsessing over her pretty quick that next morning, and then seeing where she's headed, they're like, well, we've definitely got to save her.
Yes.
And then she probably wouldn't have believed them and been like, you guys are creeps, except she very much needed saving from the house. Which I was like, man, nobody else in this neighborhood sees or hears anything.
No, they're the only ones that are paying attention to it. And Jenny, I mean, this is my note. The world's youngest entrepreneur with fantastic bargaining and selling skills. Because she was fantastic.
I have a similar note where I said, the ever so clever young businesswoman, future billionaire in the making, Jenny. Selling candy as juvenile vandalism insurance. And she has a babysitter contingency as placed as well. Buy the candy, I'll fudge the numbers, pun intended, and we both profit.
Yep. Yeah. She got to see firsthand exactly what that house could do. And so she didn't really question it. But I found it so humorous to see Chowder and DJ kind of like infatuated with her right away. because she talks about the school she goes to, and Chowder says, yeah, I got in but decided not to go. And she says, it's a girls' school.
Mm-hmm.
You could tell he just wasn't really paying attention.
Yeah. Well, it's a typical, again, I was a 13-year-old boy once. There's just something in you that if there's somebody that you have a crush on, or you've got, that has your interest in some way, there's so much, it just reeks the desperation to impress that person. And it's like not even veiled. It's not even subtle. It's embarrassing. And so it was funny to watch these two boys. And I was like, God, I've been there. Like, cause that's just what they do. Cause it's the whole thing, she's looking around the room like, yeah, posters are lame. I was going to tear them down and hang up some art. Like they're trying to act like they're in their like 30s, like to impress her. Chowder's just like,
no, I'm sorry, guys.
No. Hey, you got some beer, DJ? Like they're just, for some reason, it's like, it never works. But that desperation where you're like, for some reason, it's like, they'll be impressed with me and crush back on me if they think I'm a 30-year-old man on the inside. Like, what are they doing?
No.
But it's hilarious.
It's what kids do. I mean, you're, like you said, it's out of desperation. And it's like she's walking by wearing perfume.
Charles
They're
for the
just
ladies.
Floating behind. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Charles for the ladies. Oh my God.
It's.
It was adorable. Honestly, it was adorable.
Yeah, or there's like, hey, there's this really cool taco truck over by that spot if you want to check it out. I hate Mexican food. Yeah, me too. Yeah. Just anything to kind of play off the meme that's really big right now. Yeah, she's a 10, but she hates Mexican food. Which means she gets downgraded by a lot immediately.
Pake, would that be a deal breaker?
It might be.
For you?
I don't know.
Because you do love
I love
some
me some Mexican food.
You do. Yeah, I can't imagine.
Mm-hmm. It's not food here in Texas. It's culture.
It's culture.
It's a lifestyle. It's who you are as tacos.
Okay.
Like.
All right. Okay. All right. I'll remember that for the next time I'm down there. I didn't sense it from this past trip. It was more about Thai food and pie than tacos.
So that's what it's called, this desperation to impress. And like, it's not subtle in any way.
No, and they're already at odds over her. Like that, you can tell this is a situation where two boys like a girl. They're going to try to impress her. Someone's going to end up heartbroken, and they're already at odds. And maybe their friendship might get destroyed. Like you just don't know.
Right. Doesn't take too long though for Jenny to kind of just get wrapped up in it, because she's like, at first she's like, I wouldn't hang out with weirdos like you ever. You're just you're too much. But she's like, but I'll give you some time because of what you just saved me from, and I need to know what's going on.
And she's smart. I mean, she calls her mom to talk to her mother about the situation, and of course her mother doesn't believe her.
Right.
So she calls the cops. And that's when we meet Landers and Lister.
Man, I love them. Just love them.
Yes. Yes. I loved it. Landers refers to Lister and says, this is like trying to wrangle a puppy. Because, yeah.
Yeah, it's classic Kevin James kind of humor, and he throws in there. It's like, well, yeah, when we got the call, I was in the forest wrestling with a bear claw. And like, you see the kids are like, what? And he's like, I'm eating a donut. Like, it's just
it's like he's speaking his own language, and then he has to translate for the kids to understand what he's talking about.
Yeah, and Lister on the other side, just the rookie who, like I said, just so overeager, just on the radio, step close to the car. They're like, they're already at the car. I don't know what you're. Of course, I do have to really give a lot of credit to Lister for knowing when things are serious. They said, and it killed some people, and they're like, oh, and it's like, and a dog, and he was like, doggy down, we got a situation, back up. Like, he's ready.
Yes, he is.
Who cares about the people? But doggy, nope, we are taking this thing down.
Yep.
Uh,
And even though he's new on the job, Landers is trying to protect him.
mm-hmm.
When he hears him bashing about in the tree, he's like on his way out to try to save him. It's like, yeah, I don't think there's anything that can be done to save you too.
We'll get back up. You said there's no backup. I'll get Judy. Oh, man. That's great. But even like, to show just how different they are, where Landers just doesn't care, and then Lister's too eager. When they say, oh, that monster's there, you just need to see. And it's like, DJ's like, I'll show you. And then he goes, okay, you show. He's like, and then we'll aim for Bigfoot. And then Lister's right there behind him, like, yeah, and just holds the gun up. He goes, that's loaded. Like, it was.
It really was like Police Academy cops.
Yeah,
like the cops from the movie Police Academy. They're so inexperienced. It's, Lister is so inexperienced, and Landers spends most of his time wrestling donuts and managing Lister, his new sidekick.
Yeah. So, yeah, clearly the police are no help. So the team needs an expert. So they got to enter the game zone for the sage wisdom of one Reginald Skalinsky, a.k.a. Skull. And he's just very matter of fact about it. It's like, I love that dry humor of John Heder. He's a perfect casting for that little part. He's basically like, yeah, it's a house possessed by a vengeful human spirit. Find the heart and kill it. Have fun dying. Like, have fun getting killed.
Yeah.
I won't see you later. Like, yeah.
But they decide that they're going to go and do this plan, which is to put out the fire in the heart. So they get the super soakers. Yeah. And Chowder wants a bigger gun. Does not want the little gun.
I will say, though, like, quite clever is young DJ. Kind of coming up with that initial plan for how do they get in, how do you infiltrate the house. So he's like, well, we fill a dummy with medicine to drug the house, and then we can go inside and douse the fire. Which I love Chowder. I don't want to steal drugs from my father. I don't want to go inside a monster, and I don't want to die. And then Jenny goes, I'd say it's worth a shot. And immediately, yes, I agree. Let's do it.
Again, whatever Jenny wants, they are going to agree to.
Yeah, and that vacuum cleaner dummy plan almost worked.
Yes.
Until, the police showed up again, threw that whole plan right out the window. It was so close. Littering, loitering, vandalism, vagrancy, and treason. No, not treason.
No. Oh, man.
But, yeah.
But they do end up getting in the house, which is what they wanted to do.
They get thrown. Well, no, the tree grabs them. The tree hands.
Yes.
While they're in the police car. And it's just chomping down on the car.
Yes.
They manage to survive getting sliced by the teeth and crawl out before they go down the grinder of a throat, whatever that is.
Oh, my goodness. The meat grinder.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so they're inside the house. I mean, that plan worked. There was a little continuity thing I did notice is after the cops were grabbing and eating, the vacuum cleaner dummy just disappeared. Like, it just wasn't there anymore.
Do you think it decided the plan sucked and left?
Yeah, it was just like, I'm gonna go find new friends. You guys are the worst.
It's a really bad idea in the history of bad ideas.
Yeah. Yeah, they are inside the house.
In the toy graveyard, that's what I called it.
Mm-hmm. Well, even before that, like, walking around, before they fall down into this, like, toy pit, the house is asleep. And they're like, well, we've got to find the heart fire and extinguish it. And then that's when they talk about the rumors of Nevercracker's wife. And then they kind of see that, like, he was in the military, this demolition squad, which explains why he's got dynamite laying around.
Dynamite everywhere.
Yeah, but they're looking at the pictures of him and his wife, and it's just like, there's a lot of nasty rumors about this guy, for sure.
Yeah, and he turns out to not be what those rumors Like, he's not that person.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a rumor. It's not the truth.
Yeah. So, yeah, your toy box, toy pit, toy graveyard.
The graveyard. Toy graveyard with the killer slinkies.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, after DJ realizes that his key doesn't go to the front door, because why would you lock a front door? It actually goes to the Shrine of Constance. And she's in cement.
Mm-hmm.
And he breaks it, and the house wakes up.
Yeah. And we see a little bit of the, Constance, the giantess, on this, gate. It was from the trailer that she was kept in. I mean, she was like a circus sideshow performer is too nice of a word, because it seems like she's being held against her will. She's more of just kind of the old school, really bad. I mean, that was in the 40s, 50s kind of time where
she was mistreated.
Sideshow, freak show, where it's just you have nowhere else to go, so you're here and you can't go anywhere else. And
yep.
But Nevercracker was a good man and took her away from that.
Yeah.
So yeah, they the house is pretty upset after that. Yeah, Chowder gets slinkied. Jenny is sucked into the pipes. DJ makes it back up to the top, but then he's grabbed. And the only thing to do is they got to make the house gag and throw him back up. By Jenny knows what to do.
She grabs
onto the uvula chandelier, which leading up to that, when they're in the house before they fall into that pit, and Chowder sees something he thinks is the heart and blasts it with his water guns, which triggers the gag reflex. House wakes up briefly, but then they stay hidden. But then that leads to, I think, the single funniest line in this whole movie to me. It cracks me up so hard. Again, it's just, it goes over people's heads, kids' heads for sure. But it's I was like, hey, at his age, I mean, good for Chowder for knowing, well, sort of knowing, you're still getting confused about, but having some understanding of biological terms and knowing, what things are called correctly, sort of. Because the line is hilarious where Jenny goes, "That's not the heart." He goes, "Then what is it?" And she goes, "Well, if those are the teeth and that's the tongue, then that must be the uvula." And he goes, "Oh, so it's a girl house."
I wrote that quote down as well. Yep.
It cracks me up so much. It is, I think, definitely the funniest line. Again, I mean, I got to give some props to Chowder for trying. It means he does have some knowledge in his head that's good for people to know. But
yeah, he, they grab the uvula, which is also the emergency exit, and manage to escape. And that's when they learn that Nevercracker is still alive. He did not die. And he shares with them the story of meeting Constance. And we really get to learn who Constance was.
Mm-hmm.
And that she did go through a lot of torment from the local kids. She was very angry and vengeful. Mm-hmm. Which is explaining the house.
Yeah, you notice the little, mural poster thing that, those freak shows had for her? What it said, what its little tagline for her was? As big as a house, which I thought was clever little foreshadowing thing clever. There. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So they all learn about Constance. And DJ has this really heartwarming moment with Nevercracker and tells him, you protected us all this time. It's our turn to protect you. And the house just was not going to stay planted in the ground.
Mm-mm.
It got up and started going on a little walk down the street, chasing all of them.
Yeah. I thought it was funny. I was these kids are really trying to slow down an angry, possessed living house by closing gates and pushing dumpsters in front of it like it's going to do anything.
It's not going to do anything. Yeah. Yeah. It's a very big problem, and you're trying to solve it with something very small. It's not going to work.
Mm-hmm. But Nevercracker knows what he's got to do, and he's hidden away some of that dynamite in his sling. And it's kind of a sad moment where he's calming the house down. That's twice now that we've seen him kind of talk to her and try to calm her down. At this time, he's like, you've hurt people, and it's time for me to do the right thing, which clearly the house was not happy about, and decided, like, well, I'm done with you then. It grabs him, but then Chowder playing around with that excavator. Back to back to the rescue, right?
He's always ready to step up.
So yeah, knocks Nevercracker out for a little bit. Not knocks him out, but puts him out of the fight for a little bit. But he hands the dynamite to DJ and says, you've got this. And DJ knows that the chimney leads to the heart. So he has this whole plan. He comes up again. He's the planner, which I like.
He is. He's very smart. He puts all the pieces together very quickly. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so he's going to get Chowder to lead the house under the crane in the construction site. Which I like, Chowder thinking he won when the house crumbles, falling into the pit. And then...
Hey, guys, look who just won. It's me, the screw-up. Temporary victory.
Yeah, because then it just reforms into an even scarier looking mass of wood and brick. I do like...
And he yells at it. He yells at it and says, you ain't nothing, you're a shack, you're an outhouse. I love that, too. Like, his dialogue was great.
Yeah, and he says something else, and then, like, it roars at him. He goes, sorry! But I did like, before it kind of forms back up to a scarier version of itself behind him, when he's, like, cheering about winning, that you can see behind him that the chimney is still burning, showing that there's still life in it. I think it's just a cool little touch when you do things like that.
Yeah, because we can see him celebrating, and we see that the battle might be over, but the war is still going to continue.
Mm-hmm. And then there's the whole sequence of them climbing up on the crane, and Jenny kisses DJ for good luck, which that's what's gets him out there. He's like, I can't do it. Yes, you can. I kissed a girl on the lips. He's ready for anything now. He can die a happy man.
Is that really how it is? Is that how it is?
Oh, yeah. So he's good to go. He's like, all right, if I go out now, I've lived my best life. And he's ready for it. And then the whole sequence from there of him dropping on the crane hook and swinging, and the timing was right, and her throwing the dynamite all the way to him while it's lit, and him being able to swing and grab Chowder and drop it perfectly. I was like, that is some lucky action movie timing and aim from everyone involved.
Yes.
It just became a Marvel movie all of a sudden. And
it did. You think about all of the pieces all coming together. Like that it's not very realistic, because things don't usually work out like that in real life. That the timing, and it's really like some sort of calculus problem. Mm-hmm. Like you're figuring out, okay, the time of this, and it's a lot. Things don't always work out that way. But it worked out in the movie, and that is all that really mattered. And it doesn't matter.
But yeah, I think that actually wraps up all of the DJ notes I have. And then I threw in a lot of notes about other characters, but I got to the end of that, so we can go into some other stuff.
All right, I feel like we have to go into the Chowder. The Chowder.
Corn or clam? Which one are we going into? I'm down for either. Taking a Chowder break. Oh, we're still talking about the movie, the character.
Yes, we're still talking about the movie. We're not transitioning to...
I thought we were going into some New England clam chowder, and I was like so ready for it. But
there is only really... No, I don't want to offend our listeners, but...
Manhattan clam chowder.
Chowder.
No.
It's not real.
No.
New
England or nothing. Sorry. I don't worry about offending listeners. Get better food tastes.
Pake is a foodie. He's not ashamed to admit it. And he is a snob when it comes to certain things. And that is one of them. But I agree, because being from New England, there's only one chowder.
But I'm like that across the board with anybody. I don't care if you're my friend or not. I'll tell you. Like, Daphne, put pineapple on your pizza. Stop whining about it. It's good.
No, I'm not doing it. We don't disagree on a lot of things, but that's one thing that we will never agree on.
I know. That's one thing I will always just be right about and you'll be wrong about. And we just have to
Nope.
worry about it. We just have to deal with it and move on.
No.
You will live in your wrongness and happily. I don't know why,
nope.
but you will.
Pineapple does not belong on pizza. Please, anyone out there who's listening, back me up on this.
Well, Stranger Things finale. Hey, 11 agrees with me. Pineapple goes on pizza. So, hey, that's all of that. That's all I need to back me up.
11 is a fictional character in a TV show. She likes pineapple on pizza because that's how it was written.
I know. They're great writers. They write with realism in mind.
Sure they do.
Oh, man. I knew saying it was going to open up a whole Pandora's box of food, not opinions, but food facts.
No. Misguided food opinions is more like it.
I know that it wouldn't work. Why would anybody think that?
No.
Then I go to Argyle. Try before you deny.
No. I don't like pineapple, so it's not going to go good on pizza.
All right, well, this has devolved into something else. Let's get back on track. Chowder, New England, because it's cream basing. No, character. Sorry. Oh my God.
You didn't know we're transitioning this podcast into a foodie podcast where you come on and preach to everyone about what's good, what good food is?
You don't have to twist my arm about that. I'll do it if you need me to.
So let's talk about Charles.
Here we go.
AKA Chowder.
We're done with the food debates. I was going to say, what's the correct lobster roll?
Lobster
Main
roll,
style or
main style. There's only main style.
What was the other because there's one that's like cold and then one that's hot with one cold with mayonnaise, one hot with like butter.
Either one is good. Lobster is good in any form.
Yeah, it's all good. Anyway, you were trying to get us back on track and I jerked the wheel again.
Yep. This is why I can't let Pake drive, guys. Although usually he's the one behind the wheel.
Yeah. So, Chowder, the character, not the amazing cream-based soup.
Yes.
Yeah. We talked a little bit about the basketball scene. Just one more little. I have a lot of quotes that he's involved in because they're great. Is just to see the relationship or the friendship between him and DJ. When the basketball hits him in the face, he goes, "Oh, my nose is in my brains." And DJ looks at him and he goes, "Oh my God." And he goes, "What?" And he goes, "You're a dork." Just to mess with him for a minute. I love it.
I liked that they had that kind of friendship that they could make comments like that to each other and it's okay. Mm-hmm. Neither one of them is going to get fired up about it because they're friends. They're best friends. And that's, they're real with each other. Yeah.
Man, I think most all of my notes on Chowder are all just quotes. The things that I haven't talked about yet. Like after him surviving the house and they run across the street back over to DJ's and with DJ going, "Don't look back." And then him turning around, "Ah, I look back."
I liked at the end when they're talking about going trick-or-treating and DJ kind of relents just a little bit and Chowder's like, "Candy time?" DJ says, "Candy time." Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. He gets his deep, deep wish of still trick-or-treating with his best friend. It's candy time.
Yes.
That's really all he needed to win in this story was candy time.
Yes.
Yeah, and then really, the only other note I have, maybe the first and only really intelligent thing he said the whole movie, is while Jenny is out on the phone with her mom in the hallway, and they're kind of arguing over, who saw her first, but then under the veil of the, "Oh, you don't like Mexican food? You hate Mexican food." Well, I started hating it first when I saw it.
My goodness. Again, they were already at odds over Jenny.
But then when they decide to drop the Mexican food cover and they're just talking about, is it a girl? Clearly that's what they're talking about. And it's like, again, maybe the only intelligent thing Chowder says, she goes, "You can't call dibs on a girl." I'm like, well, again, Chowder with knowing things and having certain thoughts. He's got, feminine studies in his future. He's going to be a good man to somebody one day.
I liked that we just got the beginnings of that, but they didn't go too deep on what happens when a girl comes into a friendship like this. Mm-hmm. And they're already at odds over it, but we just get like kind of this comedic take on it, but we don't get the seriousness of, well, sometimes it does mess up friendships for a while.
Yeah.
Especially if they both like the same girl.
Yeah. And who knows where that's going to go in the future for these fictional characters. But I love, DJ doesn't say anything to Chowder about them kissing up on the crane. But there's this kind of moment, at the end whenever Jenny hugs them and then leaves with her mom, and Chowder's like, she touched my butt. And he's just like, okay, that's nice, buddy. Like, he knows what's happened. He doesn't have to tell him. He's like, no, you just keep living that dream, buddy. Okay, good for you. you know?
Exactly. Yeah, they'll always have their crane moment. And she wants to hang out with them again. Mm-hmm. Like she's like, she wants to hang out again. And I'm thinking,
it's a little surprising because they're still the goobers that they are. I guess
they are.
Surviving a giant monster trying to eat you will build some bonds.
Yeah, it does bond you. I think it definitely bonded them. But I also think there's a big possibility that they'll never see her again.
You think it was more of the like, we should totally hang out sometime. Yeah, okay, bye.
Bye.
Wait, does anybody have her number? No, she's gone.
No. Exactly. She'll get in touch if she wants to. They have no idea where she lives, but she knows where they are.
Which, those are really all my notes there. She would be next, but I covered everything I had about her. So, do you have any more notes on the kids in general?
And let me see. The house and the red kite, and when Bones is going over to it, gave me an It vibe in the biggest way. There were definitely...
That has to have been, definitely what they were going for there.
Yeah, it was like a red balloon. Yeah. And it kept, showing the kite to Bones. All I could picture with the red kite was Georgie trying to find his boat. Mm-hmm. And the red balloon and Pennywise in the grate. And, it was not pretty.
Yeah.
And I think that's all I had on the kids. I did think Bones was a bully and did not like that he was ripping apart DJ's bunny. He was pretty despicable as a person, so I wasn't disappointed when the house decided to make him lunch. And I liked it at the end when Nevercracker is giving all of the toys back to the kids.
Yeah. Little girl got her tricycle back. I guess she was a snarling zombie flower for Halloween, sure.
Yeah, I'm not sure what that was. Yeah, I liked that. And then Lander's final line in the movie, "It's Halloween. What do you say? You and I go out and inspect some candy." Mm-hmm. And that, I think, is
which
everything
goes right
I
over
had.
Lister's head, which is hilarious. He goes,
"Yes,
then we can eat some too." And he's like, "Yes,
whatever." Yeah,
yeah. So, character notes. Nevercracker, I like that they really show us kind of subtly how good of a person he really was, and that being the crotchety old man who yells at kids to get off their lawn and steals their toys, and it's all, you see, it pains him to have to do it. He has to put on this face, but it's for their protection because he has to keep them away from the house. And you see how important it is to him that he suffered a heart attack. We thought he died, and yet clearly he went through the means of escaping the hospital and stealing an ambulance so he could get back to the house in time to save the kids on Halloween night. That's how important it is. He's got his mission.
That's what he's been doing all these years, 45 years. And he was able to say goodbye to Constance at the end. And he was finally freed. It was 45 years of both of them being trapped at that house. And now he's free to live the rest of his life. He has no house to live in. He's got a big old, toy graveyard where he's just giving all the toys back. And we even see when Bones crawls out, he's carrying the red kite at the end. So.
Yeah, that's great. And yeah, some of these other side characters I said, like Z, we haven't talked about a whole lot. Elizabeth, Z, the babysitter, dressed all nice and polite until she knows the parents aren't home. And then she's the heavy metal queen who doesn't care anything about DJ whatsoever at all.
Yep, and goes by Z now.
Yeah. And then Bones, which is her boyfriend, I guess, but not official, over, and clearly, I mean, the Bones from the Skull and Bones cassette that she's jamming out to and the shirt she's wearing. And then with the phone call from beyond the grave. Bones is picking on DJ about that, but I bet he's also thinking, like, dang, I just got a new idea for a new song. This is great. Yeah, and then Bones telling the story to Z about losing his kite as a kid.
Yes.
But then he gets kicked out of the house because Z apparently has a lot of self-respect for herself, which is great for her.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah.
She's not the best person, but I'll give her props.
No, but she's not as bad as she could have been. Like, right. She wasn't as bad as she could have been. So, I agree. We have to give her props for that. I love at the end, though, that she ends up with Skull.
Mm-hmm. I think she was honestly just doing that to make him jealous. And after everything he'd been through, he was like, I don't care.
I don't care anymore.
Whatever.
I've been in a house. I was, yeah. I would think being sucked into a house and then crawling out at the end after your experience would give you some time to think about your choices.
Yeah. Because, he, after being kicked out of DJ's house, he's a little under the influence. And stomping on and tearing up the yard, which then, the house luring him in with his awesome kite.
Wasn't just a kite. It was this awesome kite.
Yeah. And then if it wasn't for, the post-credits thing that we talked about, it's just like, and then he became his name, probably. Yes. But not really, because as we see at the end, he comes crawling back out. Sure, it's quite the adventure he went through to get that kite. And he's not so worried about Z and Skull. He's just like, whatever. Yeah, and then the cops and the dog are all back. So that's good.
The dog. Yeah. I was glad to see the dog make it.
Mm-hmm. But
I think that's all the notes I have. Yeah.
Person notes. I might have, a few kind of house related, and then it comes with another quote that I thought was funny. But talk about when Nevercracker is on the gurney being taken away to the ambulance, and you see that the grass kind of reaches up and grabs his finger that's hanging on. And then knowing it's his wife's, spirit that is possessing the whole property, that's kind of bittersweet. And then it grabs the wheel to try to stop them from taking him away, like it grabbed the wheel on the tricycle, and it pulls the gurney wheel down. Because it's upset about, at first you think just its caretaker being gone, but then it's a little more than that.
Yeah. Nevercracker is so much more than what we see at the beginning.
Yeah.
Because you do get fed this story at the beginning that he's this crotchety old man who hates kids and steals their toys. And then we learn, the story behind it. And it's much more, it's not what it appears.
Mm-hmm. And then, with him gone, the house gets way more aggressive and way more ruthless to where, luring in Jenny. I mean, she's going door to door. She's not from the neighborhood, but for it to purposely pull the beware and keep out signs under the grass, which is real creepy. But letting her come up to the door and it makes the whole sidewalk ramp. It got the candy wagon, but not her. Which then, everything ends before anybody can see anything. Like I said, nobody in the neighborhood even noticed anything. Even Z comes outside right as everything goes back to normal. And I like that. She's like, what are you kids doing out here? And she's like, well, I'm going to go check on it. And I love that little line. She's like, DJ's like, no, you don't have to go. Please don't go. And she was like, what is your problem? And I love his response. He goes, puberty. Yeah, I'm having lots and lots of puberty. And that's for her to be like, whatever. You have fun with that.
Yeah.
You
enjoy that time.
Yeah. I want nothing to do with that. But then, yes, at the house just being ruthless. I mean, the poor puppers. It just took the doggy for no reason. I get why Constance wants to hate children, but why the dog?
I don't know. I did not enjoy that. So I was very happy when the dog appeared at the end and crawled out.
Which, again, with the house, with the kite, but then also it kind of has a moment like that with Chowder's basketball, trying to lure him in with it, where it's bouncing it and dribbling it with the floorboard, and then it stops it, and it's got this, like, evil little face on it. It's so cool. To where then, because, Chowder's like, nobody's going to come up to this house on Halloween. There's nothing about it that's alluring. And then the whole thing with the basketball happens. He goes, oh, it's going to be a bloodbath.
Which is why Nebuchadnezzar had to get home. Because he protected the neighborhood from his wife and her vengeful spirit. Because she was teased by the local kids. They were not kind to her. And I can understand that, like, making you feel bad.
Yeah. So, I think at that point, that is all the notes I had.
Then I think that all we have left then to do is talk about some trivia and other little things that I learned about this movie when I did my research.
All right.
Okay. So, just after finishing film school, Kenan pitched the idea to DreamWorks Animation, which is where the film was originally set up to be produced. He'd actually been pitching an idea for a film based on Pac-Man, but didn't have any success with that. Not surprised.
Yeah.
The film was put in turnaround, which is where films go between development and pre-production, in 2004. So Sony picked it up after that. Kenan wanted to stay true to the characters and the tone of the characters, but added the story of the house being possessed, so Constance was created. Kenan directed the 2015 Poltergeist film, was a co-writer on Ghostbusters Afterlife. He does not have a ton of credits to his name. Monster House takes place in 1983 and is set in a city called Mayville, which is based on screenwriter Rob Scrabb's hometown of Mayville, Wisconsin. So Mitchell Musso and Sam Lerner went to see Napoleon Dynamite before the shooting. When they arrived on set, they screamed and jumped on John Heder, who played Napoleon. This was John Eder's first time voice acting in a film. In the original screenplay, DJ and Chowder are harassed by two bullies named Ryan and Cameron, who get eaten after DJ purposely lures them to the house as bait. The two characters were removed from the screenplay because the studio thought their death was far too dark, and that the bullies combined with DJ's cruel babysitter, babysitter's boyfriend, and Nebuchadnezzar all made the film seem much more cruel. But we still get the kids being cruel to Constance, so it was still cruel. There is a backstory involving Skull and Bones being in an amateur heavy metal band. We first meet Z. She's wearing a top with Skull and Bones written on it, which you already referred to, and also plays some one of their cassette tapes. Dan Harmon was dissatisfied with the final film. He had stopped working on the script once it went to production. He did not like the addition of Constance's life and death. Harmon's original idea was that the house was full of organs. Despite the changes that they made, I think the movie was less disturbing because the house wasn't full of organs. The game depicted inside the movie, Thou Art Dead, exists and is entirely playable, though it's not an arcade game. It was playable on Sony Pictures' website and is playable in the game based on the movie.
That's fun.
There is a Wilhelm scream. You can faintly hear it as DJ walks down the stairs while Z and Bones are watching TV. And there is a video game based on this movie. It was released by THQ in July of 2006 for the PlayStation 2, Nintendo GameCube, Game Boy Advance, and Nintendo DS.
Interesting.
I have not played that game.
No, I have not either. I didn't know it was a thing, but that's cool, I guess. I'm like, I don't know if I could ever go back and really find it and play it. I don't have a PS2 anymore, and I don't know if they have it remastered and available on the Sony store for PS4 or PS5 or anything, but
I wonder. Maybe we'll have to check and see if it's available for Switch. And that is all I have for movie notes.
All right. So with that, I think we pretty much covered it all. Wrapped it up, huh?
All right, I think we did.
This Monster House. I was going to try to make some kind of pun, and I couldn't think of literally anything, so...
What? You couldn't think of a pun?
I couldn't. I was like, what? We've foreclosed on this one. I don't know. It's... I don't know. Something needs to like get me out of this. Oh, thank God. Okay. Because bad jokes were happening. Thank God for the feedback phone.
Oh,
Let me
my
get that
goodness.
and see what people had to say.
Yes.
All right. We've got a little bit of feedback this week, and we're kind of digging back in a couple of different places to find some feedback for some other movies. People just reaching out, talking about all kinds of stuff we've covered in the past and present. Not future, because that would be a little weird. But we got...
It would, for sure. But we do have some feedback. The first one is from a guy named Moneybags on YouTube. He sent in something on Dawn of the Dead, the 2004 movie. And he said, I love this one. It's not better than the first one, but I still love it.
Okay. I'll halfway agree with you now.
And you know I agree with him,
yes.
Right?
Yeah, that was the whole fun with that double dip is doing those both, kind of compare and contrast at the same time. Double dips are fun.
Yeah.
We got a fun one coming up next season. I think that's a little more than double, and we keep hinting at it all the time, and you'll just find out when we get there.
I can't wait. It's going to be the perfect time of year to do it too.
Yes.
I think. If we do it as we've talked about, it'll be perfect.
Yeah. We might. There's a couple of other things coming out right around that time, too, that we need to do. So we'll see how it all shakes out in the end. But it'll be kind of roughly there, at least. Anyway.
All right. Sounds
enough
good.
teasing. This next one from Jenny Lundgren over on Facebook, going back to Let the Right One In, saying, I made the family watch this on the vacation just to hear you guys. I think you missed some things mostly because of cultural differences, like the alcoholist in the local restaurant. All right, so she must be Swedish or have some Swedish. I don't know. So,
yeah. Jenny, we'd love for you to send us in more things that we missed and explain them to us so that we can share them with all of the other listeners.
Yeah. No, of course, she says made the family watch just to hear us, which that makes me feel happy. Like, oh, just for us. But then also I'm like, family? What does that mean? Like, I don't know if this is a family movie.
It's not.
But maybe, hopefully, who knows? Maybe you got some really cool younger kids that can just handle anything. But hopefully not. I don't know. Rambling.
So Nick on Facebook said about Anaconda, it sounds so campy. I love it. Nick, have you not seen Anaconda?
That's what I was wondering. It's like, sounds campy. I was like, if you not, I say that like, you haven't seen Anaconda. Like, this wasn't the first time I had watched it when we covered it also. So I guess I can't really talk.
Yeah. I know. It is campy. It is kind of strange.
Very campy and in all the best ways. And finally, for written feedback, we got this week's movie, Monster House. Coming from, always can, expect it coming from a good friend, Tony, over on Twitter, saying, again, another...
Always.
Yeah. She said, again, another movie I watched with my daughter, so I have a soft spot for anything that reminds me of those days. I couldn't remember exactly what happened, so I did have time to do a rewatch, and I liked it okay. I felt so sorry for Constance. Poor woman was bullied and so unhappy. I hate bullies, and I hate watching someone being picked on. So less enjoyable than I remembered, but I still think this is a fun, get ready for the spooky season type of movie. Lastly, Steve Buscemi is so great. Yeah.
That he definitely is.
Yeah, he gave a lot of life, no pun intended loosely, I don't know, to that character. And so, from one Steve B to another, we have some live Steving from the one and only Steve Brown.
Let's go ahead and hear what Steve had to say.
Hey, Pake and Daphne, it's Steve, and this is for Monster House, and I'm sorry, there's just certain shows, movies I can't get into, and I just couldn't get into this one. I tried, but man, I love what you guys do, love the show, love everything. I have so much love for Run for Your Lives, and can't wait to hear what you guys are going to do next, and hopefully I'll contribute something more than just a shout out and appreciation to what you guys do. But man, every week or 25 weeks, how many do you do for a season? Yeah, I love that you do seasons. It's great. So anyway, have a great week, and hopefully I'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, Steve, for that delightful feedback. We know that not all movies are for everyone, so we appreciate you saying that.
Yeah. So even when he doesn't watch the movie, he still comes through and gives us some feedback. So
yeah,
that's always fun. And yeah, next week maybe you will enjoy it a little bit more. I don't know. Stick around and find out what that's going to be. Daphne will be spilling that tea soon enough.
In just a few short minutes. Mm-hmm. But first, I need to tell you how to submit your feedback, which you can do so by going to our Facebook page at facebook.com/runforyourlivespodcast. You can email us at runforyourlivespodcast@gmail.com. You can tweet at us on Twitter at RFYL Podcast. DM us on Instagram at runforyourlivespodcast. If you're enjoying the show, be sure to tell your friends. We are available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, pretty much all other podcast players, including YouTube. So go to runforyourlivespodcast.com for all the links you'll ever need. Be sure to give us a review on Apple Podcasts. So it's the best way to share the love and get us out there even more. We really appreciate it.
Absolutely, we do. And speaking of sharing the love, of course, I got to get some shout outs to things going on in the podcast universe around us. My other podcast, Strange Indeed, we wrapped on Stranger Things. I think I talked about that even last week. So we are taking a little break between shows, but we will be back sooner than any of us are going to be ready for knowing it's coming. I'm sure. Lock and Key, the final season, season 3, coming out soon. And we will be covering that with Jason on there as well. Me and Rima will have him as part of that. And yeah, I'm excited to jump into it. We were talking about it, and it's like, didn't we just cover season 2? Like, it feels like a month ago. I don't know. It probably wasn't that long. It was like, it wasn't that quick, but it definitely feels like we just finished 2. So it's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely feels that way. But it has been a little while. Mm-hmm. And this is the last season of it.
Yeah. And of course, speaking about Rima and Jason, of course, they have their Better Call Saul cast over on House Podcastica. And this week, David is replaced by their good friend Claire, not permanently, just for the week. David was busy. And they are covering the newest episode of Better Call Saul, which I'm not going to say anything, not going to spoil anything, but if you know, you know, if you're watching it, quite a unique and interesting and different episode that I was really intrigued by, and I've listened to part of their episode on it right now, and it's interesting to see some thoughts on a very unique episode of Better Call Saul.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. It was super different, but it had a lot of meat in it just the same. So I really enjoyed it, and I can't listen to the podcast yet because I didn't watch Breaking Bad, and everything is full of spoilers, so I have to be careful so I don't get spoiled.
Why you just need to hurry up and watch it. Keep putting it off.
Oh.
Every day that you still haven't watched it, just keep putting it off. I don't understand. Slacker? No, I'm kidding.
Slacker.
There's still so many shows I need to catch up on and watch.
You know, it's funny. Our listeners may notice I sound just a little bit different, and it's because we're doing feedback, and I'm actually out of town in a different location, and with some friends doing my other passion. So, Yeah, it's a little bit different. It's a little more echoey in here, I think.
Coming from the Airbnb, it looks like.
Yes, live from the Airbnb in beautiful Lake Placid, New York. It's gorgeous here. The weather is amazing. Pake, you would love it. It's
I
been
bet.
about 78 degrees.
I'm getting tired of the 103 every day here in Texas.
I wondered if you might be.
Anyway, keep shouting this stuff out because you guys are like, move along, no more banter. No. On Adrenaline Cinema this week, you can catch Mark and Jerry talking about The Angry Red Planet from 1959. Old school action movie. See what they got going on there. Also watched it in the 80s podcast with Damien. He also has Jerry. Jerry's busy this week, man. Holy dang.
Yes.
Talking about Outland from 1981 with Sean Connery. So if you're a fan of that, want to check out Jerry, Damien talking about that, go to Watched It in the 80s podcast there. On the Walking Dead cast, Jason is joined by Karen, and they are talking about Jordan Peele's Nope. I have not seen. Is that episode out on the Deadcast feed? I guess it's not out yet, but
not
it should
yet.
be out soon.
But it's coming.
I just watched that movie last night.
Me too.
2 nights ago, as you're listening to this. Really enjoyed it. Which, by the way, I just got back from the movies before recording this. So then last night, as you're listening to this, I think it's a very limited theater run. So if you get a chance, there's only one theater in my entire area that's even playing it for one time slot of the entire day. So I made the one showing that I could. Go see BJ Novak's directorial film debut, Vengeance. It's freaking incredible. Just going to throw that out there. But yes, Nope. I'm excited to catch their podcast on that because I have a lot of thoughts and questions about that movie. I'm going to have to watch it a couple of times, and I know we're going to cover it on this podcast down the road too.
We are. For sure. I knew you were seeing it last night, so I waited and hoped that you would agree that we needed to cover it. So totally in. Mm-hmm. So what's going on over at TV Podcast Industries?
All right. Well, they are working their way through season 3 of Umbrella Academy right now, which I've seen the whole season, watched that already. It was a lot of fun, so definitely check that out. And they did just release their kind of review of Thor: Love and Thunder as well last week, which was a really fun listen. So,
yeah, that was a great movie. It wasn't my favorite, but there were some things about it. Probably 2 or 3 things in particular that made it amazing. And they were very quick things, but I enjoyed it.
All right. But as I kind of set up and teased earlier, what is happening next week for everybody to listen to, enjoy, Steve maybe to give some feedback on, right here on Run for Your Lives?
Well, funny you mentioned that. What happens when a documentary film crew follows 4 eccentric vampires around Wellington, New Zealand? Find out when we break down Jermaine Clement and Taika Waititi's masterpiece, What We Do in the Shadows. Was written, directed, and starred both Clement and Waititi, and the film has spawned 2 successful TV series, Wellington Paranormal and What We Do in the Shadows, which airs on FX in the US.
It is so good. Season 4 running right now. Been renewed for 5 and 6 already. Watch it if you haven't. It's incredible. And then watch the movie and then give us feedback because you got a week.
Yes, please. You have a whole week. You should be able to get it done. It's a very easy watch.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, we've reached the end of another creepy, fun episode. Thanks everyone for listening. I'm Daphne.
And I'm Pake.
And if you have to run, you better run for your lives.
Bye-bye.